Hey, comrades, what's up? Hope everyone's doing great. We're here to follow up Dirty Backyard with its direct sequel, which has almost nothing to do with it, but is a sequel called Kill the Lord. So this is also identified by Shift Up as an event that is chronological, and it takes place again like Dirty Backyard. I think around chapter 15, so like way before we're at covering the campaign. All right, so it stars our friends D and K again from their previous adventure. So it kind of is also a pseudo sequel of that because that gets brought up like a tiny little bit, and like our decision there to kill that guy or not kill that guy. It's very ambiguous because we get a choice. We also get a choice in this. I obviously take the correct choice as I do. Anyway, so this starts off. We get this lady Camellia and her husband wake up in a very nice, like posh sovereign room. They pray. There's an altar with a bowl and a sword and all this creepy cult stuff. And then they talk about how he's doing, and as well as how it's important to help others who also need help. And then Camellia leaves the room through this like crazy large iron gate. Meanwhile, over in our room, we're about to relax, take a shower when D and K are there, of course. And then they mention that we should know better than like they like by now we should know better that we're never gonna be able to relax and that there's gonna be something crazy that goes on. So why are they just hanging out in our shower instead of coming in the main room? I don't know. Who knows? Um, so what's up? So we find out about the sovereign lady Camellia. She's like next on their list of people to like check out and make like a judgment call on whether they should die or live or whatever. She's 24 years old. She's the youngest daughter of a high-ranking central government person, and her husband are like super wealthy as well. Her husband's gotten sick recently, and he's kind of like disappeared from public life. Um, and around that same time, she started hosting these parties, which seemed like no big deal. But then people from these parties have been disappearing as well. So we need to go decide what's going on. And then we mentioned like, okay, yeah, that's your guys' job, but why am I here this time? You don't invite me to all your jobs. And it's like, because we did such a good job last time. And we're like, okay, yeah, well, what's the real reason? And it's like, okay, so we want like deniability of the involvement of making this decision because she's related to such a high-ranking government official. And we're like, okay, we see. So the job again is going to be to infiltrate, and we're like, no. So yeah, to infiltrate into her job where she's working. We're like, no, can do. She doesn't have a job. She's just like a rich like lady who does rich stuff. So we have to try something different this time. We're going to try differently this time is that D is going to pretend to be our wife and we're going to pretend to be your husband and we're going to start going to like these parties. And in my head, I'm like, this is literally the exact same thing we did. We didn't go to like, we went to a job site last time, but we also pretended to be husband and wife. It's like, how's this any different? What's different this time? Well, we'll get to that in a second. Anyway, and so the reason why we're going to play husband and wife is because it's going to be easier for us to integrate ourselves because she's married and these parties tend to be couples and whatnot. And we're like, well, what about Kay? What are you doing? And she's like, well, I'm going to go look into these missing people. And so they tell us to like get into a good disguise. And then D will be back in the morning to pick us up essentially. So she shows up and now we got D Killer Wife, which is a super hot model and it's a big favorite of the community generally, I have to say, just based on the amount of fan art and stuff I see in it. But she looks sexy, like bam. And this is the beginning. Well, I guess the beginning. It's like two or three of these Nikke characters because it happens to Delta later on as well. They wear like body armor, and so they look kind of flat. And then they get these like alternative costumes, and you're like, holy cow, how is that body armor like mystically holding these giant boobs like away from you? But anyway, so it's kind of silly. And so she's like, all right, we're going to go to this new apartment. And so we head out there and it's like the super decked out apartment, super nice. She hands us a tablet with a very detailed background of like us and our relationship, including how we're like a rich businessman, how we met like 10 years ago and been married for 2 years or something. And also about her being a very submissive wife. And we're like, who wrote this? She's like, I wrote it. And you're like, huh. Anyway, we head out to like meet the neighbors and give gifts of flowers and stuff. And we run into like the chairman of the apartment, who's this rich lady, and D wows her with like her acting. She gives her a flower, and then we get this like diffuser thing, which doesn't seem super important at first, but it's very important. It's like the most important thing about this story. And the diffuser's just to like help the room smell good, like flowers and whatnot. And then she gives us a connection to come to this party with couples, and she talks about her husband, how he's like busy with work, and she's like, oh, maybe you could talk to my husband because business and our business and yada yada yada. And then we leave, and then we're like, wow, D, you're really good at this acting thing. And then she chides us for talking so out loud about stuff in like the hallway because Sovereign can hear. So after a bit of like going out, talking to the neighbors, getting to integrate ourselves a little bit, we head back home, and it's late, so we go to shower. And then as we walk into our bedroom, Dee's just like sitting on our bed, looking sexy, and we're like, "Oh, here we go." But no, we we ask her, it's like, "What is this? Not is? Oh, I'm sorry, is this your room?" And she's like, "No, it's your room. I'm gonna stay up because nighttime's like the prime time of day to like get attacked or whatever. So I'm just gonna stay up all night and sit on your bed and like make sure nothing happens." And we're like, "Are you gonna be okay doing that?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'm fine. Why? Why would I not be?" Like, okay, fair. The next day, we get ready to leave when someone rings the doorbell, and it's Rosanna, looking extra sexy in like this sexy fancy dress with her hair up and stuff. And I'm like, nice. And so we had her face with like a mask. And Dee mentions like, oh yeah, he's sick and stuff. And Rosanna, who calls herself Rosie, and Dee is calling herself Diana. They like chit chat for a little bit, and then she leaves. And then Dee's like, what's going on? And we mention that we know her, and Dee's like, oh yeah, I know her too. She's the head of Hedonia. That's weird. Why would the head of Hedonia be here, and why would she be living next door to us in this apartment and this like sovereign place? Like, what's going on with that? Like, I'm gonna have to look into that later. So we head to the part, but we gotta go because the party's starting. So we head to the party, and the chairwoman is like super sketchy. She talks about her husband's like in government, and then Dee's like, "Wait, I thought you said he was a businessman." And it's like, "Oh yeah, he's both something something." Oh, let me introduce you to these people, and we meet. She introduces us to all these other like couples, and the couples are like super sketchy because they like don't remember information about each other, or like someone will be like, "Oh, our kid," and the other person will be like, "We have a kid," and it's like, what? And then finally we get approached by Rosanna, and she's like, I knew it was you the whole time. Like, what are you guys doing? And we're like, what are you doing? And so they both kind of like, Dee and Rosanna refuse to like have a conversation about what they're doing. But she does mention that Dee's like an axe murderer, and Dee's like, how do you know that's me? And she's like, you literally have an axe on your back like right now as part of your like costume. And then it's like, it's funny because the costume, like the alt for Dee Killer Wife does have an axe that she's holding behind her. But it's like one of those things where sometimes like Rosanna's carrying like a machine gun, but no one's like like an assault rifle. But no one's like, hey, I see your assault rifle right there. It's like, oh, I guess like canon. She just like hides the axe in like this sexy like slinky dress. My goodness. And then Rosanna mentions, and they're like, "Oh, what are you even doing here, Rosanna, without like a couple? I thought this was like a couple's party." And she's like, "Oh, my husband supposedly is like super sick with an incurable disease, so I brought my friend." And then it's Camellia. What? And so both of them have like sick husbands, and then Rosanna, for whatever it is, pretending that her husband has the same disease that Camellia's husband has, but Camellia's husband's been like healed. And then Rosanna's like, "Oh, meet my friends. This guy has the same disease that your husband has." And then Dee's like starts rolling with it like immediately, and we like pretend to cough and have some issues and whatnot. And then Dee gets like really passionate and begs for her help because she loves her husband and can't live without her husband and all this stuff. And finally, Camellia agrees and invites us to like this other meeting that's like I think the next day at like 8 a.m. or something. Afterwards, we head back to our apartment, and Kay's there. And so we chat about the events, and she mentions Rosanna being right outside the door. And then for some insane reason, Dee like chucks an axe at the door. And then Rosanna's like, you could have just opened the door and let me in. Like, this is insane. I was like, thank you. So we bring her in, and we talk about the involvement and how she was really grateful because she's been trying to get she has her own like goal with this whole thing, and she's been trying to get invited to this party. But like Camellia's been very like kind of hesitant, but because we showed up and she invited us, she invited Rosanna as well. And so she's super happy. And then she mentions the whole thing. They're like, well, why do you want to go? And she's like, well, that thing that happened with Moron. We're like, what she says is she talks about how she had a friend, or I think she calls her an associate in the English translation. So she has an associate that got fucked over by somebody, and that person might be involved in like this meeting situation. So she wants to go there and get information and maybe do something about it. And then we see like an image of Moron, and then we think about Dirty Backyard and everything. So we start to put it together. We start to put it together. But essentially, all the talking around. Again, I don't know if this is how the actual original Korean was written, but Rosanna's here because Sixo might be involved in like whatever's going on in Camellia's like meetings, and because they fucked with Moron and caused problems with the Peony Association, like from Dirty Backyard, she's here to kind of help get that figured out and kind of find out what's going on with Sixo. And Sixo again is the big like tie to like the actual importance of like the main story as we get further along in the chapters after the current Crystal arc, which if you're watching these week by week, that's where we're at. We're like picking up with like the Cinderella grave stuff, but then after that we're gonna start really getting into more of the kind of six, like not getting into the six, but six is gonna come back and start being more relevant in the story besides just the stuff with Liverin. Okay. So we're gonna decide we're gonna work together and then pretend to just be like neighbors. So we're gonna go to this thing, and then she leaves, and then Kay reveals information. She talks about how there's different kinds of disappearances. There's voluntary and involuntary disappearances. Involuntary disappearances are like kidnappings, stuff like that. Voluntary, like people want to disappear, and it seems like all the people who disappeared from these meetings are voluntary. Like they like chose to leave the situation. Like something happened, like they got money or something else happened, and they like disappeared. And then some people, it's harder to find information, so it's more ambiguous whether it was voluntary disappearances or not. There's no way to tell. And so she's going to tail us tomorrow to this thing and kind of keep an eye out. And so then we repeat the previous night. We take a shower, head to bed. Again, we're like, hey, are you sure this is not your room? And she's like, just lay down and go to sleep. You got like 3 hours to sleep or something because we've been up all night. We talk about her not sleeping, and she's like, I'm a Nikke, so it's okay. And because of like, the real problem with not sleeping for Nikke is the mind switch, but because of Dee's job and how she handles things and like this covert special ops kind of stuff, she can handle like not sleeping for days, and she'll just like make it up later, so her mind doesn't like switch or whatever. And then we're laying down, we're having a hard time kind of falling asleep because we're thinking about the previous mission and the decision we made with the other guy, with D and K. And then she senses that, so she comes up and like leans against us or whatever, or like gets real close so that we can like feel her body warmth. Nice. And then it helps us fall asleep. The next day, we head to the event. It's in this super nice mansion. The security's super tight. We run into Rosanna as soon as we get in there, and then there's some banter. Camellia comes dressed in like all red, like a crazy cult leader, and so we follow her to another room, and then all the people from the party yesterday are there, all the sketchy people like the chairman and stuff. And then she gets up front, talks about the Savior, how the Savior cured her husband, and she tells us to present our suffering. And so Rosanna and Dee both give these like spiels about their husbands being sick and wanting them to get better and being sad and all this stuff. And then it's time to talk about the miracles. It's like crazy cult thing. And so people stand up and talk about how like, oh, my husband lost all his money in a business, and then I came and the Savior helped us get it back. And you know, it's like a lot of that. Someone is like, oh, I lost like my leg in the war and now my leg's back, or like it wasn't that crazy, but there's some lady who like, oh, and then Camellia's like, let's praise the Savior, and then she turns like a TV on, or a monitor, and it's just blank, and we're like, and everyone starts crying or smiling and praying and stuff, and then this Sally chick like rolls out in a wheelchair, and she's like, I got paralyzed from an accident, but I believe, and so Camellia takes her like behind the screen, and then she like comes running out, and she's like, I'm cured, and she gets on her knees and starts praying, and everyone's moaning and praying, and so Rosanna texts us, and she's like, this is crazy, I'm out. And it's like, there's no 6-0 here. I'm good. And so after the prayer, Rosanna's like, oh no, I just got a call from my husband. He's in critical. I gotta go. And the Kamala's like, oh, please let us know how things go and hope you're okay. And she's like, yeah. And while that's going on and like the praying and stuff, we decide we're gonna go get like lost in the mansion and see if there's like the missing people around. So we head up to the second floor, and we noticed that there's a lot of these diffusers, like the one the chairwoman gave us around, which is weird. And we kind of mentioned it, but Dee's like, oh, whatever. So then Dee breaks into like this room, and there's a whole bunch of people, like the missing people, that we saw from like the files and stuff that are just there praying. And we tell them our fake story about me being sick and Dee trying to help us, and we got kind of lost and wandered in here, and they're like, oh, pray with us, and the Savior will bless you. And they talk about the Savior's bless them. And then we have to pray near the diffuser, because the diffuser helps like us come closer to the Savior and stuff, and it's like, okay. So then Dee is about to make up an excuse to get us out of there when Camellia shows up, and she takes us out and back down to the first floor. And then she's like, I know you're not sick, but that's okay. Sometimes it's hard for people to tell the truth about what's really going on with them. So just don't push anyone here too hard and bother anyone, because they're all here they're all here for their own reasons, and they're just trying to get better and follow the Savior. But if you don't believe in the Savior, there's nothing we can do to help. So just, when you're done doing what you got to do, just leave. And then she wanders off. It's like, okay, I guess she just really likes helping people or whatever. And then we're like, okay, well, what now? And so she's like, I'm gonna call Kay to come here and check on these missing people, and then we're gonna go find like the last missing person. And we're like, who's that? And it's like Camellia's husband. Right? So we head up to the third floor, and then the diffusers, and there's a bunch of flowers as well there. It gets like super intense. Like we're starting to like kind of like be like, oh my gosh, it's like hard to breathe in here. And then there's like an iron gate. So Dee breaks through it, and then we hallucinate, like straight up. So we're like we're dreaming that we're like on the surface and we're like returning home to like the counters in Marion, and that like there's no more raptures, and that we've reclaimed the surface, and it's, we're not a commander anymore because there's no need for them. And then we get slapped, and it's D being like, "What is wrong with you?" And it's like, "I'm hallucinating." And so then we press forward, and there's another door, and this time we start smelling like a strange stench on top of like the diffusers and whatnot. And then D starts hallucinating, and she just gets like this funny look in her face and starts kind of mumbling something. And then we like grab her and like bring her back to reality, and she's like, "We gotta gas mask it up." So she hands us a gas mask, like adventure game style, because we're putting it on, and we're like, "Where'd you get this from?" And she's like, "Don't worry about it." It's like, okay. And they're like, "What about you?" And she's like, "Oh, I can just like, she's a machine, so she can just like activate some filter, or turn off her sense, whatever." And we're like, "Okie dokie." And then there's a third door, so she busts through that door, and it smells even like the stench is even stronger. And then we get to like this fancy room, and there's a bed full of bugs, and we're like, "What in the world?" And then Kamalia like rushes in, and she's freaking out, and she's like, "What are you doing here? Are you here to kill my husband?" And we're like, "There is no husband." And she's like, "He's right there." And we're like, And the room is like full of like the diffusers and everything like that. And so Dee pulls out her axe, and we grab her arm, and we're like, "What are you doing? Like, you can't kill her. She's not done like it. She's like crazy. She's not like doing anything." And she's like, "Oh, I'm not here. I'm not going to kill her. I want to show her what actually is going on." And so, but then she's like, "Well, you have to make the decision. Do you want to allow her and her people to continue believing in the Savior, or do you want to like wake them up to reality?" And so we think about everything, like our previous decision and stuff that's been going on here, and the balance, like the choice and what it will mean. And we personally decide that I'm going to show her the truth. So we end up, D does whatever, like smashes the bed or whatever, which destroys the center. Oh, sorry, which just like wakes this lady up. She like freaks out and loses it. And then we like skip it a week ahead. And we find out that like the meetings had all stopped, that some of the people refused to lose their faith, but some people got really angry, and a lot of people just wanted it to like go under the rug and disappear. And that Camellia tried to kill herself but failed. And so the whole thing's kind of getting swept under the rug. And that we've been having kind of unpleasant dreams about the whole thing for the week. So D comes in, not D Killer Wife anymore, but regular D, to check on us. And then she talks about making the decision and how there's like, she has a conversation again about like the balance. There's a balance to all things. But there's also an internal balance, in that you have to like come to terms with your own internal balance about what happened and what you've done, and the justifications and all that. So that's pretty good. And then she thanks us and leaves, and we're like, then it's like, "Oh, we slept well that night for the first time in like a week," or whatever, which is nice. Which kind of ends the story. But then we have the epilogue, which is also one of the most important things about this story and the relevancy of the overarching like storyline. And it's Dee meeting with Rosanna, and she hands Rosanna a diffuser and says like, "Hey, this is what you were looking for." They had a whole bunch of them in that mansion. And then she leaves, and then Rosanna's checking it out, and it's a mist dispenser, right? Like mist, like the drug from Dirty Backyard. And then Dee even mentions that it was strong enough to affect her, like Nikke's. And so Rosanna thinks about this, and she's like, "This is going to be excellent. This is going to help me get revenge on 6-0. And then it's like, dun, dun, dun. And that ends Kill the Lord, which was an excellent, Killer was hot. So it was a good little side event. I like these like more serious kind of sketchy events versus like the like silly ones, to be honest. The silly ones are all right. But so next up, we're going to talk about D Killer Wife's Bond story. All right, for D Killer Wife's Spawn story, we head home to relax for like a vacation that we're due as usual. And we show up, and Dee's there wearing her Killer Wife outfit, and we're like, "Hey, what's up, girl?" She's like, "I'm here," and then she's like, "You failed," and we're like, "What?" And she's like, "You need to be able to improvise better. That's why I'm here. I want to help you act better and learn how to perform better. And so for the next 2 weeks, we're going to pretend to be a married couple here in your room. And so anyone who comes to visit, you're going to pretend that we're married." And we're like, "That's going to be a problem because there's a lot of Nikkes that come visit us on a daily basis." And she's like, "No, that's perfect because none of these Nikkes are going to be the object of like their investigations or whatever. And so there's little risk of running into anybody who might recognize them for later." And then she goes on this whole kind of rant about how she's concerned because the judge likes the way we work together. So, and so she wants to make sure we can handle ourselves so we can improvise because our acting in Kill the Lord was pretty weak. And so she wants to make sure we can handle ourselves. Okay, yeah. So she, let's see, and so we can tell that D, we mentioned about her work with Perilous Siege, and she says that no, I'm taking time off. I'm using my vacation time for that, so to make sure that you're going to be okay, so that next time we go on a mission together, that I don't have to worry about you as much, and that you can do better. And so we see that she really cares for us and wants to help us out. So then we're like, okay, fine, we'll do that. And so then we work on our cover stories. With our agreements, Dee gives us the job of figuring out our relationship. You know, like in the past, like in Kill the Lord, she came up with the backstory and everything, but she's making us do it as part of like our training. So we got to figure out how we met, what kind of couple we are, what do we do, and we really focus on the marriage. So we're still going to be a commander and all that stuff. And so we got to come up with stuff so that we can make sure we're being consistent. So we go out and meet people. We know exactly when we met, how long we've dated. I think we decided like dated 3 months. We got married, like we eloped like today. So it's easier for us to remember. We have like a lovey-dovey relationship. Um, and, and then, oh yeah. And then she mentions that sometimes we have to communicate non-verbally. So she uses this like violet perfume. And when she uses that, it's like time to get into character. Right. So that she doesn't have to say like do that, and then they call each other honey, which we have some like issue calling her honey, but she's no problem like immediately switching gears and acclimating to be like our wife. And she's like, all right, I'll see you in the morning, and then we're gonna begin like our week of holy matrimony. The next morning we wake up and smell the violet perfume and find Dee like laying down with us in bed. So we're like, oh, okay, cool. So we're gonna be your wife. And immediately this becomes very difficult because the counters roll into the room and they're like, who is this? And then we're like, oh, we're married. And they're like, what? And the D becomes like very possessive. And then we're about to like tell the counters everything because they're like, you know, our girls. But then we see the axe behind Dee's back and we're like, Rappy though, who's Rappy, she's very smart. So she immediately deduces that D is from Perilous Siege because of the axe, and then D's like, you should get lost so we can be husband and wife together and whatever. Being confused, but still, we kind of mentioned that like, hey, don't worry about it. I'll tell you about it later. So she takes Anise and Neon and leaves. And then we talked to D about not being super comfortable with D being so jealous and so possessive with like all these Nikkes that come to visit us all the time. And then D is like, oh no, but I'm your wife. So I don't, if I feel like another woman's going to take you away, I feel obligated to act aggressively towards them. And we're like, okay. But then the day kind of gets crazy. We get a bunch of Nikkes coming to show up and they're all jealous and concerned, like Signal, Folkwong, Ruby, and others. And then she keeps like flaunting her status as being a wife. And so this goes on for a couple days and it's like very stressful for us. So on the third morning, we're like, we find her just like cutting fruit and we're like, hey, we got to like figure this thing out. Like, this is like, it's really hard for me to stay in character. So I don't feel like I'm getting any better acting here in like my office where people keep coming to visit. And she's, you know, we have to go back and forth, but eventually we get her to agree that we can go somewhere else because at first she's like, are you trying to weasel out of our agreement? And we're like, no. I'm just like, this is my workspace and I got Nikke's coming to like do bond stuff or like get advice and stuff. So I can't just be like here being married and have you be like so aggressive with all them. And and then we apologize for making things so difficult and whatever. But then she finally agrees that as long as we fully commit to being her husband, that she will find us another place to go and that our office can be like our workplace. And then she like stabs the table and is like, if I catch you looking at any other Nikkes and getting distracted while you're pretending to be my husband, I will take care of the problem. Because what does she say? She's like, I will take care of any interferences that inhibit our ability to be married. It's like, okie dokie. Oh man. So with that, Dee takes us to a fancy hotel, and then we wake up, and then it becomes a lot easier to play the loving husband to the adorable wife. And so, yeah, so we tell her how beautiful she is, and we start acting like a perfect wife, and how happy we are to be with her and stuff. And this puts her off guard a bit, right? And then we start our life as newlyweds. So we get up, we shower, we do while she makes us breakfast, and then for the next few days, we have a very pleasant time together. We get up, we do breakfast together, we treat her very well. We head to work, we get back, we spend some more time. There's like a whole thing about like wanting to kiss her before we head out to work, but then like feeling uncomfortable because she doesn't like really offer it. So on the first day, which is like the fourth day of this event, bring her violets as an apology for how we behaved before when we were back in our room. And we're like, oh, we figured that violets were your favorite flower because of the perfume you use. And she's like very taken aback by how like perceptive we are and how good we are at playing like her husband. And then she finally like, okay, I trust you. And so the next 2 days go very well. It's like breakfast, hanging out, work, going to bed together. And then something about like the toast she makes too salty for us in the breakfast in the morning. But other than that, it's great. And the lovebirds are having a great time. On the night of our last day together for this thing, we want to like change the pace of like our situation. So we offered to take her out on a date until midnight. And then she gets concerned about bumping into someone that might know us. And we're like, oh no, we're not concerned. We want to take care of you since you're our wife. And we want to, make sure that your husband does what he needs to do to help you out. So we go on a date throughout the tour. We do like a little, throughout the arc. We do a little tour of the arc. We stop to get some snacks. We buy her some toast as a thank you for helping us, making breakfast for us all the time. We stop by the shopping mall and we're like very affectionate, and we tell the owner, he's like, oh, you guys must be newlyweds. I'm like, have we married for a week? And then we like really pamper her, get her to try a bunch of clothes on and buy her clothes and stuff. We stop by a flower shop and buy her a dozen violets, her favorite flower. And she gets kind of like very flustered with us being so affectionate and buying us so many lovely gifts, considering that we're about to be done with our relationship and whatnot. And we're just like, hey, we want to make you happy and let the love fester and all this stuff. And we really try to get her to ease up and enjoy like the time that we have left. And then as the hours go by, and then eventually as we're like walking around holding hands and doing all this stuff, her phone beeps. And it's like, oh, well, I guess the time for us to be over, or the time for us to be lovers is over. And as we're talking, now that she's like back to being D and not my wife, she was surprised how natural and affectionate we were. And then she mentions that our feelings seemed like they were genuine. And we're like, yeah, they were. And she's like, well, I had genuine feelings for you too. And then we get kind of like awkwardly silent or whatever. And then we have like more violet flowers for her. We just gave her some as like a final gift. And she's like, well, this isn't for your wife. And I'm like, no, this is for you. This is for D. I had a really good time with you. And so I wanted to give you this as a gift. And then, as part of it was a compensation for like her taking so much of her time to try to help us out. And we're just really grateful for everything. Yeah. And then we kind of stand there awkwardly some more as she like is holding our arm really tightly so that it becomes sore. And ultimately she takes the gift and then she's about to leave and we send her off. And then she takes a few more steps and then turns around and confesses that she really enjoyed being our wife while it lasted, which catches us by surprise because, she's not just being like a cold, heartless assassin she likes to do. And then she holds on to the bouquet and like wanders off into the night and we say goodbye. And then, some time goes by and we like look fondly back upon like our time with the role play being her husband and whatnot. And then one day we're coming home after work. And we find our wife is here. And it's Dee, the D killer wife. And she misses so much and she's wearing her violet perfume. And we're like, oh, okay, so we're doing this. And then obviously we're going to pick up where we left off, which means we're going to fuck. It's canon now. Yeah. All right. So go ahead, like, share, subscribe, comment, and we'll catch you guys later.